Welcome to the Legacy Leaders Podcast. Are you doing the best for your client to help them create their legacy? Are you creating a plan that goes far beyond finances to help people ensure that it becomes the driving force behind all decisions? On this podcast, hosts Katie Beth Hand and Stan Miller will help you with growing your practice and your clients' peace of mind. Together, they bring the best and brightest minds to share with you how to help your clients develop their best legacy. And now, here are your hosts, Katie Beth and Stan.
Welcome, everyone, to today's episode, and we're joined by a CPA and certified tax coach, Gary Heldt Jr., who is owner of Small Business Advisors. With over 30 years experience, Gary goes beyond the traditional tax preparation to help his clients shape their financial future. And as a premier tax coach and trusted advisor, he's dedicated to strengthening businesses and driving financial success. So let's just dive in. Gary, welcome to the show. I've been wanting to do this for quite some time because you and I work together. And so I'm glad that you're here.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. I really appreciate you having me on.
My pleasure. Yeah. So, Gary, can you tell us a little bit about you and why you started your career in accounting?
It goes back a few years now. I found when I was younger, I watched the movie The Untouchables, and I thought that that was just fascinating. So, because of that, it was just like how the FBI could come in and take down somebody that was so bad in many ways. I looked into, okay, how can I get an FBI and do this? And at the time, it was, you could do it through science, which I wasn't a science person. I could do it through law. It's like, well, my family didn't have the kind of money to send me to law school for sure. And then I found that there was an accounting through forensic accounting. So, I started looking into this. And at this point, I was in high school, and one of my football coaches taught a bookkeeping class. So, he told me, hey, come take the class and so forth. So I started taking the class. I'm getting ready to age myself here. It had the old workbooks that you had to tear the pages out to turn it in. So we had that workbook, and a lot of it was, you got to work at your own pace. We had lessons and stuff, but a lot of it we were doing at our own pace. And I was almost done the book, and we're still in the first quarter of school. Well, he had his own bookkeeping business on the side, so he started bringing stuff in to help me, be a little bit more advanced because of how fast I was moving through stuff. And it really came to me. It was kind of like the Matrix, and I just could see it. And so at that point, that's when I decided when I was in 10th grade, hey, I'm going to major in accounting and then go work in the FBI. Fast forward through college, got my degree, and then I went to apply to be in the FBI. And at that point in time, there was a lot of bad hiring practices that the FBI was dealing with at the time. So they had a hiring freeze. It went on for a number of years. So, at that point, I just decided, okay, look, I'm going to start working towards getting my CPA and start working for some companies, gain some experience and stuff like that. So I'm ready when they open up the hiring. So I worked for a small accounting practice at the time, and then left there and went work for a mechanical contractor, left there, went and worked for a nonprofit, gained some more experience there. And while I was there at that nonprofit, FBI reached out to me to say, hey, we're ready now.
Okay.
And at that point in time, I was kind of well in my career, had gotten my CPA at the time, and was kind of making a name for myself. And at the time, I just kind of decided, I think I'm going to keep going this accounting route and not go to the FBI. So that kind of shifted that. I went and worked for a trade association after that, gained more experience, and that's more on the nonprofit side. Then I left there and went and worked for a very large for-profit company that I was the CFO of one of their branches. Did that for about 3 years, and then just decided, it's like, okay, I'm kind of tired of making everybody else a lot of money. I wanted to kind of go out on my own. I felt that I was ready after gaining all that experience. So I went out on my own and decided that now's the time for me to be able to bring the skills that I've learned working for various different styles of companies and sizes, and now bring that to small business owners, because many times they're not able to afford that type of CPA, especially back then at that time with the large accounting firms. So that's why I decided to branch out on my own.
Excellent, excellent. You've been designated as or the premier tax coach where you're at in Maryland. Can you explain what sets your approach apart from other tax professionals?
Sure, I can tell you most accountants, CPAs, tax preparers are historians, archaeologists. We're taking the information that has already happened that we can't change and putting that onto a tax return. And how we're different is we still do that compliance work and everything because it has to be done. But we try to look forward for people. When we get a tax return, we're not looking for, okay, what are the mistakes? I should say, we're not only looking for the mistakes that somebody may have made, but what we're looking at is we're looking for the missed opportunities. What are the things that you as a business owner could have done differently from a tax perspective that would have been able to lower your taxable income, keep more money in your pocket, in your employees' pockets, and be able to help you thrive going forward? So that's what we're looking at. We're really looking at what the different tax strategies that you aren't taking advantage of that we can do cost effectively.
Yeah. So you're proactive rather than reactive.
Correct,
Exactly.
100%.
Okay. How did you become such a specialist in tax reduction where the majority or a vast majority of most CPAs are not doing that?
Terry, I'll tell you, I was that person that wasn't doing it. I was that person that somebody would come to me and say, "Hey, what do I need to do to reduce my taxes?" Oh, go buy a new vehicle. And again, that's one of those things where now it drives me nuts, and I'm mad at myself because I did it for so many years. Back in 2016, I took some additional classes, got some additional certifications in tax planning. And what it really did was change my mindset and how I look at things and how I think about things. And instead of somebody being a customer, they're a client. There's a relationship that we build. There's discussions that we have, meetings that we have. And what we try to do with that is because we're thinking of things differently, we're bringing things to the business owner's attention that, hey, do you know about this? Or we talk to them and ask them, hey, if you have questions about stuff, bring it to us. Because lots of times they'll hear things through the grapevine or from whoever type thing, and they'll say, "Hey, I heard about this. Is this something I'm eligible for?" And if we don't already know the strategy, then we're going to take a look at it. But so much of it is being proactive and thinking outside the box, really pushing yourself to look for things that can help someone else, because it doesn't need to be, just the Rockefellers of the world that
Right.
are getting these tax advantages. You as a small business owner, you were still eligible for a lot of them. And then we just have to find out, is it the right fit for you?
Right. And I've been in the business 46 years and you've been
Right.
around for a while. And so, in defense of the CPA space, most of them don't have time to research these 75,000 plus pages of the Internal Revenue Code to find those golden nuggets of tax reduction opportunities because they have so many tax return clients. When they see them, spend most time with them during the year. It's their busiest time of the year, and they don't get the time to talk about that, and they just don't have the time to research these things. And so, can you speak to that possibly and how
Sure.
you are frequently collaborating with the client's CPA and helping that client reduce their tax burden, not only for business owners, but high income W-2 people and small and medium sized business owners. Can you speak to that?
Sure. I think as accountants, tax preparers, CPAs, many times we have been taught to be afraid of the IRS because of, oh, IRS audit is going to happen. And it's like, not that I'm saying, oh, I don't care about an IRS audit, but in a way you don't, because you're protecting your client based on what advice you're giving them and what you're telling them to do to help bulletproof their records. So if they do get audited, that they have sufficient records to be able to support all of their expenses. But the other piece about it is that because I'm not fearful of an audit, and because of how I help my clients line things up, that gives me time to be able to look at different strategies for them. Yes, we do have other CPAs that we work with that aren't part of my team, but because of the client and their relationship with the CPA, we help the CPA understand, hey, this is now, I'm not going to teach them everything, but I'm going to certainly be able to explain to the client, be able to explain to the CPA. And then
Due
we always
diligence.
ask, yeah, we always ask, hey, let us give the final review of the return before you file it. But we do deal with other CPAs that don't know what these strategies are, and they don't have time to deal with them because they are so busy just trying to churn the tax returns. And that's where we don't do that. I mean, yes, we still have our crazy February, March, and April timeframe where we're doing tax returns. But for most of our business clients, all of their business stuff is done. We have everything ready to file their tax return. We're just waiting to make some contributions to some retirement plans, and we're done with the business return pretty much already.
Because you've
Now,
been working with them all year long.
correct,
Yeah.
correct. And that's where, Terry, what we usually do is we typically have meetings in May with our clients, so then that way we could talk about, hey, taxes are done, this is where you are for the first quarter. We meet with them again, August, September timeframe. Okay, where are you, 2/3 of the way through the year? We meet with them again in November just to kind of tighten things up, make sure that if there's any at last minute estimated payments that need to be made or anything else, we make those, in time before the end of the year, as compared to many times CPAs meet with their clients when they finish a tax return, and then they meet with them in December to give them last second, things to do. Well, we already know because we've already built the plan. And all we're doing is making sure that, we're making minor tweaks to the plan depending on, income that has changed or anything else that's changed with our plan throughout the year.
Mm-hmm. I know that you and I have been collaborating for some time, and that's the biggest thing that I think that I see that most CPA firms haven't got their arms around. I read a Journal of the Accountancy article a little while back and found that the number one concern of almost all CPA firms is the problem they have of acquiring new talent. And the second problem is keeping people that have talent. And so, if that's such a big problem, and it is, why aren't they doing something about it? That is something new that most of the industry, most of all industries are starting to do now, and that is collaboration with even their competitors. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is just a problem in the accounting field. It is definitely a big one in the accounting field. I think finding the right talent is something that's very important. I think that so many industries have people that are, want to work from home. They don't want to be in an office. I will tell you that over my years before I started my own practice, a lot of what I learned was because of what I overheard people talking about. And I would hear people discussing things, and I would pick up on a lot of stuff because of that. Now, if you're a young person and you're working at home and you're in your little silo, yes, you're going to have your teams meeting and stuff like that, but you're not going to overhear that type of thing. I had someone who worked for me back during COVID that was a college student. When they were all sent home, she was looking for work. So I hired her to do some data entry and stuff like that. She actually, because of listening to what we were talking about, when she went back to school and some of the classes she took, she was able to pull from her time being here and the things that she overheard to help her in her classes. And, she called me at one point in time and said, "Hey, you remember when we talked about, this, that, and another? We just talked about that in class, and I was able to fully understand what the professor was talking about before they even talked." And that just is that piece of it. I think, Terry, I think that I know here at our office, we try to include everybody so when we bring in a new client, I talk about, hey, this is what the client is here for. This is what we're trying to do. And we collaborate in the office, but then collaborating outside the office is something that's important, because I know you and I have talked about stuff, and you've said, "Hey, what about this?" And then I'll, if I don't already know about it, I'll go research it and give you the information, because I'm not going to know everything. Any CPA or anybody who says that they know everything, it's impossible. There's a lot of things that I've seen done right and seen done wrong. But I think the collaboration is really the way that we need to go. And that's why we have the family office that we have, because it works. And sometimes people need to put their egos to the side to make that type of thing work.
And do what's best for the client.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And many times the people egos get bruised because they weren't the ones who came up with the idea. And I look at it, I don't care whose idea it is, as long as it's good for the client, and we are all working together as a team to make the best decisions, or to help the client make the best decisions for them.
Yeah, you bring up I'm glad you brought that up, because that's another issue that most clients have. And that is their advisors, 99% of the time, are working in their own silos. The attorney's not collaborating with the CPA or the wealth manager or the insurance guy or anything else. If they did, they'd probably come up with a much better plan for the client rather than all working individually and talking to each other. I just think it only makes sense, and I can't understand why it's not happening. So,
One of the things, take retirement plans, for instance. There are so many different retirement plans that are out there. And then inside the retirement plans, there's all kinds of different products that can be put in there.
mhm.
I can't, there's no way that I can keep up with all the tax law and everything else and be able to keep up with every single product that goes inside of a retirement plan, or could be inside a retirement plan. And that's where, if we're not collaborating, what makes the most sense for the client, or gets the client the most bang for their buck. That's why you need to have all those pieces working together.
And with all the experience that you have, 30 years, what are some common mistakes that you see small business owners making? And maybe even higher W-2 people as well, higher income people. What mistakes you see them making when it comes to their finances and or their taxes?
Accepting that what the IRS says that they're allowed to do. Accepting the IRS's pressure on them to not think outside the box. I think that there's a lot of mistakes that are made in the fact that they're going to somebody because they prepare taxes cheaply and expensively, instead of, it's kind of like you go to a restaurant. Are you willing to pay a nice amount of money for a great meal and a great experience? Most people are. If not, then yes, you're going to go to a different restaurant. I think when it comes to picking your advisors, it's extremely important to make sure that you have somebody that will talk the same language that you do. I see so many times professionals in all of our fields that talk in acronyms and talk over people's heads because they want to try to feel more powerful, or make the business owner be afraid to ask questions.
Mhm.
And that's what I want. I want them to ask questions.
Absolutely.
No, I'm not going to sit and explain to you how AMT works, but I'm going to sit and explain to you why this particular retirement plan I think is the best for you, or why you should set a business up in this manner. I'm all for asking the questions, because to me, then as you start growing your business, if I've helped lay the infrastructure right and you're growing your business, then you're thinking, hey, this may be a separate business that I can break off, that we may be able to get some other tax benefits. What do you think? Well, not always are they going to be forthcoming with that. And if they're afraid to ask questions because somebody's talking over their head all the time, they're
Right.
never going to come to you with that.
Right.
So I think that the biggest mistake that they make is not hiring the right advisors to work for them.
How do you help clients balance their immediate financial needs with long-term growth and stability when it comes to tax planning, et cetera?
Yeah, so part of it is when we first start dealing with the client, we do try to have a conversation with them to find out what are your goals and objectives. We try to look at how much money do they have put away in retirement? What is their age? Do they have kids? What's the goal of their business? Where are they in the life cycle of their business? And we really try to figure that piece out first to be able to then start building a plan. Depending on how the client was brought to us, if it's somebody that you're bringing to us, then we're picking your brain based on your experience with the client also. We're not going to use a shotgun approach to see what sticks. We really want to sit down and go through everything. And I always say it's like, a doctor doing surgery with a butcher knife as compared to a scalpel.
Right.
And we're really going to go in there more with the scalpel and try to really fine tune what really works to be able to help the client get to where they're going. Understanding when we're building the tax plan for them, we're also looking at cash flow. How much cash flow do they need to have at home? Because we don't want to do all these different tax strategies. Yes, we're
Right.
saving them a bunch of money in taxes, but they don't have the cash at home and they're going in debt
Right.
because they don't have the cash at home. So there is definitely that balance that we try to do.
Sure. And, as a trusted advisor, and what I think this all the time, that the tax reduction specialist to the stars. How do you help your clients plan for both business and their personal financial needs?
Sure, sure. Looking at it also, when do they plan on retiring? And looking at that, it again, going back to that collaboration of making sure that we're working with the other advisors that they have to make sure that, okay, are we building everything that needs to be? What is their exit strategy? Do they have different trusts that they need to set up? Are they charitably inclined? Do we need to set up some type of a charitable remainder trust for them? Is there um, the donor advised funds that they want to have set up? So that's where we are kind of looking at all of these things. And that's why so much of the discussion at the beginning, and we iron out a lot of stuff at the beginning, but then our working with them over the next couple of years, we learn more because we've found it where we've asked the same question we've asked for a ton of other people, find out that the people that we're dealing with had a child with special needs that had passed at a young age. And that's always been something that's been near and dear to their heart. Well, we help them set up a nonprofit foundation that they have, and that they are putting a lot of their personal money to it. but it's also one of those things where I'm going to say, help fulfill themselves in other ways that they weren't doing before. We found that this was really what their passion is. It wasn't the business that they were running, it's this nonprofit that they now have. So it's, again, these are things where being able to talk to them, and we're reviewing these tax plans every year to make tweaks to them to make sure that they are financially where they want to be.
And servicing the tax plan as well, not just
Exactly. Well,
updating it, but servicing it on a quarterly, annually basis. Yeah.
correct. And I think that that's a lot of the key. It's not like a business plan that you did when you first started your business to get that loan to get started, that you put it in on the file cabinet and you haven't touched it since.
Covered by
This
dust.
is,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, to me, the tax plan is a living, breathing document, and you have to make changes as you go, because not just because of tax law changes, but just what's going on in life changes.
Right.
And that way we can keep the collaboration, so we can make sure that we keep helping build towards that financial goal that the client has.
And new opportunities come along frequently. And so we
Right.
have to stay up on that for clients and prospects as
Well,
well.
with the new administration that we have now, there's going to be
A
a
lot
ton
of
of
changes.
changes. We don't know what's going to happen with all of the tariffs and the things that are going on there. We don't know what's going to happen with the government requiring people to come back to work. Is that are people going to take those buyouts, and then now, new, fresh people are going to be out there in the marketplace for small businesses to hire,
Looking for a new job. Yeah.
have that experience. you know we just don't know right now. I mean, we
Right.
know something's going to change, and it's what exactly is going to change. Well, we need to be able to be nimble enough to be ready to change these tax plans if something changes in the code, from loopholes being closed down to ones being opened up. I mean, we just don't know until something passes, and then that's when we're going to look at it. A lot of people are projecting what they think may happen, but again, that constantly keeps changing. I mean, you look at, hey, we were going to put the tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Well, now
It
there's
lasted what, a
put
couple
on
of
that.
days?
So that's why lots of times we don't speculate what's going to happen. We wait for it to happen, and then we react to what happens. But we're ready
Mm-hmm.
to be able to do that.
Right. Gary, what is something you know now that you wish you knew when you started?
I really wish from day one I knew about this tax planning and what we're doing with it. I wish I knew that in day one for myself. Would save me a ton of money, but also for our clients. I think that that's definitely one. The other thing that I really learned with this was more, and this was one of my clients who mentored me for a little while, actually told me, shut up and listen. And made, which is true, because like so many times, as I was growing up, it was always in the professional side of things. You need to make sure everybody knows how smart you are.
Right. Yeah.
And
They don't
he
care.
told me, and he told me, he's like, if you're just sitting there and just spewing out everything, you're actually telling people how dumb you are.
Yeah.
And it's like you're telling people without gaining knowledge of them and the situation, everything else. You're trying to tell them what you think they want to hear,
Hmm.
as compared to actually listening, taking in all of that information, and then helping them formalize a plan. And that's where he was like, you just need to listen, ask questions, listen, ask questions, listen, and then come back and put together the plan. And that's something I really wish I knew, when I first started.
I couldn't agree with you more. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It's a different world.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it at that. But what's one piece of advice, Gary, or actionable tip that you'd like to leave with our listeners to help them improve their business and or financial situation?
I think everybody needs to have a team of advisors. Many times, as small business owners, a lot of us don't have I'm going to call it a board of directors. Everybody thinks that's for the big boys. Well, I think that everybody should have a board of directors or board of advisors, if you want to call it.
Right.
And so many times as business owners, we're so busy working in our business, we don't work on our business. And we hear this all the time. Oh, I got to work on my business.
Mhm.
Well, if you have this board of advisors that's holding you accountable, it makes you work on your business. It's going to make you think about, okay, well, how can I squeeze more money out to the bottom line, but also how can I raise that top line at the same time in a strategic way? But it's also that's your sounding board also when you're thinking about what you should be doing
Right.
or what you could be doing. So I think that to me, I think that's the biggest thing is any business have your board of advisors that isn't your best friend. It's people that are going to be able to tell you you're screwing up and you're going to take their advice. You're not going to, get all upset and go sulk in the corner about it,
Mhm.
but you're going to listen to them.
Yeah.
And you need it to be somebody that truly will hold you accountable. I don't know if I would have it be your spouse. I mean, that
Right.
may make things a little bit rough. But again, if your spouse has that type of background, then I think it would be
Sure.
good.
Yeah. That's a great idea in the realm of, in addition to having a board, it's a great idea in the realm of getting all of your other advisors working together.
Correct.
That's an incredible idea, Gary. I'm going to borrow that if you don't
Certainly, certainly.
mind. So, how do you define success, Gary, after all these years?
I think that a lot of what I look at is what my clients have been able to do. I have one of my favorite stories to tell is that I had three partners come in my office, and it was maybe my first year in business. Sat down and talked with them. They were losing money every year. They didn't have the right structure. They weren't making what they should have been making. They didn't know what a budget was. They didn't know any of that. And then 18 years later, with help from me and some other business coaches and advisors like I'm talking about that we put together, they sold their business for $18.4 million.
That's not too shabby.
No, but that's because of doing the things that I'm talking about with the planning. They were able to do that. To me, for them to see them grow like that and to see what it's done for not just them, but for their families and things like that, I find that as success.
There's another important lesson there, if I could throw it out, if you don't mind. And I've found that each and every year, only 20 to 30% of all the businesses that are put on the market, only 20 to 30% of them actually sell.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And with all the baby boomers retiring, it's becoming a buyer's market in the business market.
Yep.
And so if you really want to sell your business at some point and get a value for it that you're expecting, you need to do the things that you just talked about.
Yeah. I
There's no
mean,
doubt about it.
and Terry, and we brought in somebody who has bought and
Right.
sold quite a few businesses as part of our board of advisors to help us get the business. Because again, I'm not the expert on everything. I'm the tax guy.
Yeah.
But we brought him in and he helped us make sure that we were showing the most amount of top line money and then also the bottom line, how to tighten up the expenses inside, but then also talk to us about recasting numbers based on some of the things, benefits that the owners were getting and things like that, that a lot of people wouldn't know about. And even the company who bought them was quite obviously very large. They didn't even think about some of this stuff that this guy brought to the
Right.
table.
Yeah.
So again, you find that the people that are the experts in what they're good at and bring them in and let them teach you what you need to do. But again, we were prepared, and it wasn't necessarily that they were saying, hey, we want to sell. It was somebody came to them about buying them. And then at that point, it was like, okay, well, we need to get ready for this because what they're offering us is
Yeah.
that's a joke. Let's bring somebody in to help us.
If you do it
Two
when
and a
you're
half
getting ready to
years.
sell, it's too late.
Right. Yep.
Sometimes that's a 5-year project,
Yep.
you know?
Exactly.
And over the next decade or half or two, with all the businesses that are going to be for sale, you got to be best in class or you're going
Yeah.
to get left out. Am I?
Well, it needs to be able to do is systemizing their business, because if your business is systemized, somebody can come in then and buy it and they have all the systems in place. And that makes your business way more valuable to somebody who may not have that experience.
Or if you've already worked to clean everything up, you've got that top revenue and you've done the tax planning and got your taxes to a minimum, well, you look very, very attractive at that point.
Correct.
Okay. So we talked about a lot here. I could sit here all day with Gary, but is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience that we haven't talked about?
No, the only thing I can, and I know it sounds like a broken record, is get that team, build your team of professionals that you trust and that you feel comfortable asking any of your questions to. If the people that you have currently you don't feel comfortable with and you don't feel that you can ask questions to, you need to replace them with somebody that does, because you need to be able to go to them with any of the questions you have to make sure that, again, you understand what's going on. You are very good at doing whatever it is that you do. Let Make sure that these people are there to help you continue doing that and continue growing.
A lot of business owners and high income people and higher net wealth people don't realize that if their current advisor isn't helping with that, it's not going to get done unless you
Correct.
talk to somebody. And you're not going to get your business to where it should be if you're in that situation and you don't talk to somebody. So,
Terry, we have a client that we're working with right now that had an attorney, a CPA, that they don't feel comfortable asking questions to, or they're not getting answers from that group. And we know the situation that they're in right now.
yeah, pretty bad, pretty
Yeah,
bleak.
and it's like, but that shouldn't be. There
Right?
shouldn't be that they're not getting answers. It shouldn't be that
Because there's a
they're not
lot of
able to ask
revenue
questions.
there, and
Yeah,
yeah, and we can't go into the details. We'd be here
no,
all day talking about the mistakes that went on there, but
right,
yeah,
yeah,
those are nightmares. And too often we see them. I wish they weren't out there. But
right.
Gary, with all of your success, what do you see as your biggest challenge going forward?
I mean, like every business owner, it's finding and retaining talent is definitely high on the list. I think I have a great staff that work with me right now, and it's something that's taken a long time to get them to be able to do that. But I think that that's probably number one. And then I'm going to say number two is just getting the word out there that there's people like me that do tax planning, and I mean that in the right way, not that last second, hey, SUV for the fifth year in a row. You know, that's not tax planning.
Mhm.
And people have to understand that when you hire this team of people, you need to be willing to pay them to do what they're going to do for you, because it's going to come back tenfold if you
Oh,
do.
yes. If they're good and you do it right, there's not going to be a cost to it. It'll be all profit.
Right, right. And it's an investment in your future
There's a
is
cost,
really
but
what it
the,
is.
but the rewards are much greater.
Correct. So I think that that's what the challenge is going to be. And it's one that I definitely feel that we're up for the challenge,
Yeah.
for sure.
Gary, I know we've got all of your contact information below the screen here, but what's the best way to reach out to you if one of our listeners wants to talk to you?
Sure. You can either go to our website, which is www.sbadvisors.cc. Yes, nobody knows what the CC is. And back when I started, that was supposedly the new upcoming .com type thing. So www.sbadvisors.cc, or you can give our office a call. Our number is 410-721-6000. We're option number 2. If they want to reach me out on LinkedIn, they can do that also.
Great. Like I said, it's great to have you on. Been wanting to have you on for quite some time. We need to do it again.
Yes, sir. Definitely.
But everyone out there listening, watching, if you're frustrated with your tax burden, you're a higher income earner, you're a higher net worth person, or you're a successful business owner, frustrated with those taxes and the tax burden you have, reach out to us, reach out to Gary, and see what we can do for you. So with that, we'll close out for today. And remember, folks, the best way to predict the future is to create it, because it was not raining when Noah built the ark. See y'all next week.
You've been listening to the Legacy Leaders Podcast with Katie Beth Hand and Stan Miller. For more information on them and the show, please visit pinnaclelegacylaw.com. If you like what you've learned today, do share the program with your friends and subscribe wherever podcasts are found.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.